Okay, we'll get started today. I want to welcome everyone to the first committee meeting for the House Study Committee on Safety and Consumer Protection in the Tree Care Industry. This House committee was established by House Resolution 473 that we passed this past session. The committee will hold 5 meetings. This is our first meeting, and we'll get into a little bit more about the reason that we're having a Saturday meeting. You wouldn't believe how many phone calls I had this week from leadership saying, "Is your meeting on Saturday?" So
we're getting overtime, though, right?
Yes. Bill, you are getting you're getting overtime.
Excuse. I was like, it's on the website. I'm not making up an excuse.
Okay, so we'll get started. I'll call this meeting to order, and Chairman Yurda, would you mind opening us in a word of prayer?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all our many blessings you provide us. Guide and direct us as we hear testimony today in this important industry in our state. Continue to bless us in everything we do. In His name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Again, welcome everyone to beautiful Legacy Park in Decatur, Georgia today. Some of us got here, I think Representative Huddleston got here several hours ago, and some of us got here a little bit earlier and were able to walk around and watch some of the events. This meeting is on Saturday because it corresponds with the Georgia Arborist Association's annual tree climbing championship, I believe is what it's termed as. And so we're going to hear some discussion in a few minutes from some gentlemen here that are representing that industry, a part of that organization, and kind of give us a little background on why we're here and where this concept came from. As I'd mentioned earlier, House Resolution 473 was an effort that began over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, trying to pull together and get House approval for a study committee to look at one of the most dangerous and treacherous industries in the nation, and what Georgia can possibly do to help that situation, to try to make sure that people get to go home to their families and that sort of thing at the end of the day. So that's kind of why we're here. And what I'd like to do is we'll start to my left here as far as our committee members. I'd like for each one of us to introduce ourselves, that we are being live streamed, and I know there are some folks out there watching to see what's going on with the meeting here. So Jason, would you like to just introduce yourself, tell us your district, where you're from, and what you do, and go from there?
I'm Representative Jordan Ridley. I represent the Lake Allatoona area of Cherokee and Cobb County. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm actually in the landscaping and tree care industry myself, so this is a very important topic, and I've seen the dangers of it firsthand, so I'm happy to be here today.
I'm Bill Yurda. I'm from District 152, which is Worth, Lee, and a portion of Daugherty County. Certainly this industry is very important to my district and certainly the whole state, and just happy to be here with you today.
And I am Victor Anderson, a representative for District 10, which is Habersham and Rabun counties in the very northeast corner of the state. I am chairing this study committee, but really proud to be a part of this effort.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marvin Lim. I'm state representative for House District 98. That is unincorporated Norcross in Gwinnett County. The landscaping, arborist, and tree care industry is huge in my area, and we've unfortunately seen some accidents and fatalities there, so I'm very grateful to be serving here today.
David Huddleston, District 72, consists of Carroll, Heard, and Troup County. Basically, I'm just finishing up my first term as a state legislator, full-time farmer, retired of 36 years with a power company, so been, like I said, very aware of the tree cutting industry and I guess the hazards that come along with it, so I'm very honored to be a part of this committee.
And kind of rounding out our study committee team, on the end of the table down here without a microphone, we have Bailey Jordan, our analyst that is working out of the House Budget and Research Office, and then in the corner over here, making sure that everything is happening, is our Media Services group. So we appreciate everybody here to help us with this. What I'd like to do now is turn the microphone, and what we might do, I think, Justin, we got up here at the podium, we'll I'll ask Mr. Tierson Boutte with Boutte Tree Service. Is that, am I giving you the right name? Close anyway? If you don't mind, step up to the podium there and kind of start us off with comments.
Okay, everybody can hear me all right? Yeah. I got real bad hearing, so if I ever ignore any one of you guys, just talk louder or even kind of push me on the shoulder. First of all, thank you, all 5 of you, all 8 of you, for taking the time to pay attention to us in this industry and for offering to use your expertise and your time and your position to study this problem. I started off in this industry because I didn't have any money and needed to pay for college. So, you know, I paid my way through Georgia Tech cutting oak trees, mostly. Because down in Atlanta we got more oaks and pines. And then when I graduated, I went and applied for a job, and I was stuck in a dingy room with a guy who was trying to offer me a job as an estimator because I had a civil engineering degree at that point. And I realized I belonged right back out there in the trees. So it's been 25 years since then, never regretted not using my degree. And so that little story really tells you 2 really important things about the tree business that I think are important. One, the people that are in it, you know, they really belong there. They love it. It's a beautiful place to be. I mean, you're a farmer. I mean, I think you know what I'm talking about, right? But the other thing is that it's an opportunity for people who don't have any resources to get ahead in this country through their hard work. And everybody here knows that. And so when we talk about improving safety in this industry, you know, all the people at GFASTI are talking about doing that in a way that preserves that ability for, you know, young people mostly, or people that have a lot of drive and ambition to be able to put that to work and not be blocked by a bunch of regulation. But having said that, in my 30 years in the industry, I started off doing things probably wrongly, because at that point in time there was very little in the way of a good example for us in the industry. And then, to be honest, there were some good examples, but I was just not wise enough or old enough to look for those examples. And then as time goes by, my conscience started to bite me, because I would see that, hey, what I'm doing is not right. And so over the past 25 years, I've become more responsible in the way that I run my business, to the point where now I'm proud of how I run it. And then there comes a point in that history where you start to want to give back to the industry itself, because you realize there's so many good people in it. So that's why we're kind of here, is because me and Rusty were both present at the passing of Brendan LeBlanc, who was a tree climber that died. So most of the stories that I'll tell you about tree climbers and tree workers that die, it's because of lack of training, just real simple stuff that we could all easily avoid with a little bit of time up at the front end. Anyway, so Rusty and I were there when Brandon passed, and we were sitting there. He was up in the tree, and the reason why Brandon LeBlanc died was because his whole team didn't know anything about aerial rescue. So David was talking about the aerial rescue, and you liked it, right? One of the cardinal rules in tree work, once you get somebody trained, is that if a person loses consciousness in a tree, then their body inverts because they flop, they become limp. And if that happens on the ground, then you lay on the ground and you keep breathing even if you've lost consciousness. But if it happens in a tree, then because there's no ground, then your body turns upside down, and you got a couple minutes before you start to, well, basically it prevents you from breathing, so you got a couple minutes before your brain is deprived of oxygen. Isn't that right, David? So this crew didn't know that, and poor Brendan's up in the tree, and there was a limb hanging on top of him, and instead of, if they'd had even just a basic level of training, they would have probably been like, hey, let's get this limb off of Brendan, and then he can come down. But they kind of were like, well, we don't know what to do, so we'll call 911, and by the time they showed up, it was too late. And that's just one example. All of the fatalities that I could tell you about, there's a few exceptions, but almost all of them, it's kind of like one of these like hand over the face kind of situations where you just wish you were there and you could have said, hey guys, let's do it this way because we could save this guy. So that's where we're at, is that we're at a point in our industry where there's a lot of fatalities. I mean, in the last 16 or 18 months, I've had 10 come into me, which I didn't used to get that. But since I started being in this role of kind of leading GFAST and talking with Victor and talking with other people, all of a sudden I get way more calls than I used to. And it's just all in Georgia, really, we're just losing about a person a month to tree work. And when I got into the industry, it was a small industry. There's probably more people working in loggers than there are in tree care, but it's changed, right? Because it was more suburbanization, and the logging is mechanized now. So there's just all these people, more and more people, and there's more and more demand, and that's a growing industry and everything like that. So we need your help to help us solve this problem. We think that some amount of regulation is necessary. As I told you from my life story, I think almost every life story out here is very similar to mine, in that nobody wants a tree industry that's, you know, got all kind of insane barriers to entry or anything like that. We think that a little regulation in the right place could save a lot of lives without leading to that point. So that's my quick synopsis. I'm the president and the founder of GFAST. That stands for Georgians for a Safer Tree Industry. Rusty Lee has been basically my partner, and he's on the board. There's 2 other board members, but I wanted to bring a little bit of other people from different perspectives, so I invited Eric Ganzauer from the city of Columbus, and Victor agreed, you know, to bring him into this circle, and then there's Cesar Sesmas, who's a member of GFAST as well. I don't know how long you want me to talk, Victor. I could start telling you stories about everything that's gone, all the people that have come through, and how they all, I could go on a ways, but maybe we just let the other folks introduce themselves. And does that sound good?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Before you go, though, I've got a little comment to make, and I'll just kind of, if this rings a bell, we'll let you kind of talk to us from the standpoint of safety and some of the concerns here. Yeah. I have a good friend who I had lunch with this past week, who actually lives just outside of town, or in the outskirts of Decatur here. And over lunch, we were talking about this committee meeting we're having today, and he started telling me, yeah, I've had a tree fall on my property, and or some limbs fall from a tree, and I've got another tree that's dying, and I'm talking with a tree service about getting it taken down. And I said, really? Yeah, it's I think their name is Booty Tree or something like that. And I said, would it be Boutte? And so, yes, and not to draw names into it, but he did say that one of the things that you guys are working with right now are working with Georgia Power Company about de-energizing a power line. Even though the tree is not on the power line, it's close enough to be a concern. And when I heard that, I said, you know, first of all, I would have expected nothing less after our conversations over the last 2 years as to that degree and level of safety. But just kind of explain or talk just for just a few moments, if you will, about the things that like that are critical in this industry that maybe aren't being practiced out there. I know we talked about the aerial rescue procedures that you just discussed and that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, thanks, Victor. All right, so I'll just tell a couple of stories real quick, and that'll illustrate what you're asking, which is the main areas of concern. So in the industry, we talk about 4 primary areas. We talk about falls from height, we talk about struck by objects, we talk about vehicular accidents, and we talk about electrocutions. So all in Georgia, all within just the northeast quadrant, just to show you how many fatalities are occurring, I can tell you 4 stories that touch on those 4 areas. Marvin Cifuentes was a tree climber that lost his life 4 months ago, guys, 3, I'm not sure. This guy was climbing a tree to just prune some dead limbs off for a homeowner. Been doing it for 10 years in the industry, only 2 climbing. The company where he worked had 0 training protocols. He climbed up this tree. He had a steel core flip line, which is, a flip line is like a work securing line that you would put around a branch when you're using your hands to do cuts so that you have stability for your body. He climbed up that tree. He had never been trained in like how to recognize electrical issues, how to identify electrical components, how to calculate minimum voltages or minimum approach distances. He was just flying blind. Probably he got close to a lot of lines. Maybe he got close to telephone lines in the past and nothing happened. I'm not sure. But the point is that he took the flip line off the tree and allowed it to go through the air and come into contact with one of the phases of a 3-phase primary. And he was pretty much instantly electrocuted. His crew likewise had no training. So while he probably died within a few minutes, if not seconds. I'm not sure exactly. But his crew actually attempted to rescue him. So they got ladders and started to climb up the tree in an attempt to rescue him. Obviously, if they had gotten close enough to Marvin to touch him, they also would have been electrocuted because there was electricity still flowing through there. The workforce, unfortunately, is sometimes operating this way. It was actually a homeowner that came out and said, hey, I don't think you should do that. So there was a homeowner that was present that had the presence of mind to step in and save the rescuers from becoming second victims. So that covers the area of electrocution. That's one of the big 4. This is going to drive you crazy. Same family name. Guy's name was Bernardo Cifuentes, not a relative of the first Cifuentes. Was killed by a struck-by incident, kind of up Roswell way, Alpharetta. So he climbed up a tree, took all the limbs off, came down, and then he was going to drop the pole. And one of the cardinal rules, one of the most important rules to follow when you're felling a tree in general is that after you've installed your cuts and you do your back cut, then when the tree starts to move, you have to move at least 5 feet away from the tree. So he didn't do that. The tree went where he wanted it to go. It hit a round of earth and then jumped and landed on him. Again, the entire crew had received no training in emergency response measures. So the homeowner came running up. After the crew cut the tree off of him, the homeowner began to perform CPR on the victim, but it was too late because the tree had already crushed him. So that's one struck by. So then there was a guy named David Hernandez. David was killed by a struck by. Another homeowner rescue situation. So David was climbing a tree and he was using another tree to rig the limbs from the tree that he was removing. And he removed all the limbs, and then when he got down to the trunk wood, he took a piece that was too big, and when that piece came down, then it actually broke out the limb above him, which landed on top of him. This was a situation where the tree service owner was, I'll just say, probably an unethical or, not a good person. So after he got injured, the homeowner came out and assisted to get him down. Again, the crew was untrained. And actually what happened, as far as we know, is that the owner of the tree service, who I've tried to figure out who this person was unsuccessfully, basically declined to bring David to the hospital, and he died 4 or 5 hours later in some kind of, basically he was left in the truck to die. I don't have like 100% certainty on the facts on that incident, but we know David lost his life, and we know that he was at least conscious after the event happened. So that was a tragedy, and yet another struck by accident. Vehicular accident, Sean Sewell, very close to here. This was a board certified master arborist, lost his life in a vehicle repair incident. So vehicular incidents in the tree industry are not always just on the road we're driving, but they often involve specialized machinery, and the knowledge to operate and repair those machines properly is not always there. So those are the four big areas where we see our tree working community suffer over and over again. And there are some exceptions, guys. I mean, sometimes you have a guy with perfect training and he does everything right and he still gets injured, but 99% of the time it's because there's something that he wasn't trained on, was ignorant of, or maybe he didn't follow the rules. So that's what we're seeing in the industry, is a lot of loss of life. And also, every time we see a guy who loses his life or gets injured, we also see many, many hundreds of thousands, if you like, of property damage, right? Because for every incident where somebody makes the ultimate mistake, there's usually dozens of incidents where nobody loses their life, but there could be an injury or some kind of damage. And we've seen that as well. So I hope that helps paint a little bit of a picture, Victor.
It does. Anybody on the committee have any questions right now for Tierson? Marvin.
How much is your insurance?
How much is my insurance?
Excuse me, for your business?
I'll share my insurance cost with you if you like, just to prove a point, if you will. So Butte Tree, we do about $11 million in revenue a year, and I pay about $500,000 in insurance. But Butte Tree is fortunate we have a very, very low insurance rate. I've seen plenty of tree companies that maybe do significantly less revenue and may pay double what I pay in insurance. So the market is pricing people pretty well.
Thank you.
Does that help? Is that what you were looking for?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tierson. Appreciate that. Rusty? I'd like to introduce Mr. Rusty Lee with Heirloom Tree and Garden. And Rusty and Tierson are the two that came to my office almost 2 years ago again, and we sat down and started having this conversation for me. They've been having this conversation for many years. And Rusty and I are social media friends, and I know I've shared with our committee some of the posts that Rusty has done regarding some of the fatalities and incidents in this industry too. So, Rusty?
I appreciate it, and to echo what Tierson said, we appreciate not only one of y'all, but 5 or 6 of you guys coming out here to see and learn a little bit more about our industry. We definitely appreciate it. Just kind of give you a little bit of back history on myself. My degree is in horticulture. This is my I think 36th year in the industry. Was in commercial landscape from the mid 80s up till 2000. Went over to tree care after that. Got my certified arborist. I was vice president with what used to be a large company in Norcross, Downey Trees, based out of Cumming. I was with them for 19 years. Left around end of 2018. I went to senior vice president with Gunnison for a term. Went to COO of AKA Tree Service out of Oakwood for thankfully an even shorter term, and worked for a company which the owner's here, a company over in Covington, Arbor Equity, for about 3 years as vice president. And now I am director of tree care for a company called Heirloom Tree and Garden out of Norcross. We're actually owned by Michael Jackson Landscape, so we're one of the few that we do both. I just run a 2-year-old tree care division for him. And I had almost forgot how long it had been until I had found something. I sent it to Tierson before. Actually, November 3rd, 2012, I had texted Terry England, who is a good friend of mine and lives in the same county I do, and basically said, can I have a conversation with you? Just what kind of, can you point me in the right direction? What do we need to do? And So we talked, and then we had another meeting not long after that with Gary Black. And it was myself and Terry and Gary sitting in Terry's barn office, and told Gary what I was wanting to do is see about trying to get some kind of legislation, some kind of license for our industry because we're so dangerous, as Tierson's pointed out. And I remember Gary saying, "Why do you want more legislation in your life?" And he kind of caught me off guard because I don't think anybody in this room wants more legislation in their life, but I don't see any other way to fix the problem. The Georgia Arborists Association, who I've been the president of, I was on their board for 7 years, and I ran these comps for 7 years. They're really the only, organized group of arborists in the state. We would have to basically police ourselves as Georgia Arborists Association members, and I don't see that happening. We got a great group. I mean, don't get me wrong, we got some great members, and pretty much represented from North Georgia to South Georgia and east to west, but I don't think we can police ourselves. So I think this legislation, passing a bill, would be the only way to really get from where we're at and where we need to go. And as Tierson said, on May 27th, 2017, it was a Saturday, I get a phone call from a fellow tree guy, and he's, "Hey, I need your lift." And I said, "The lift's not available. What's going on? Why do you need it this quick?" He said, "I got a guy stuck. It's an emergency." My son and I jumped in the truck, hauled butt from Winder all the way to Chamblee, in triple-digit numbers. But unfortunately, by the time we got there, he had passed. And I remember standing in the front yard with the Cobb County Fire Department and talking to Tierson and, thinking, well, we got to do something. This is ridiculous. Not only and we're working from every angle. It's not just shoving a license down somebody's throat. Since that day, we've trained over 400 Metro Atlanta firefighters on how to get tree climbers out of trees, because that particular event, the fire truck was able to get in and reach over to get him out, because their policy is once the accident happens, nobody can help. So we're working on that side too, but Tierson and I said we've got to do something. And I had started the conversations in 2012, but I realized real quick it takes more than one person and more squeaky wheels to get grease. And Tierson shared kind of the same vision I did, and we've slowly been able to get other folks to share the same vision of trying to make this industry safer. And as Tierson said, we've had a bunch of accidents. And if you really stop and think about our industry, every single thing we do can kill you, regardless of driving to and from work. I mean, y'all know what driving on Atlanta roadways are. That's bad enough. But the chipper can kill you. Not only kill you, destroy you, where only DNA is going to figure out who you are. The chipper will kill you. Falling out of a tree can kill you. The tree falling on you can kill you. Parts of the tree falling can kill you. Electricity can kill you. So everything we touch, the chainsaws will kill you. Everything is dangerous. And right now, if you have a pickup truck and a chainsaw and a case of beer, you're in the tree business. And it's sad to say that. There is no, and we all know, and what I've always told people when they're, to the public that's not aware of it, is if one of your wives goes to get some manicure pedicure, the nail technician doing that work has to be licensed. And if you guys go get a haircut at a barbershop, the barber's got to be licensed. But yet we're the most dangerous profession in the country, and there is no requirement whatsoever. And I think in the mock-up bill that we had put together, for the most part, it was requiring minimum coverage of insurance. We're not asking, we could have put on there, you've got to have a certified arborist on staff, you've got to have EHAP, you've got to have all in first aid CPR, all those things that we all have, Eric's got, I'm sure Caesar's got. Those of us that are doing it right have already got that. We know that. We're doing it by the book, or trying to. We could have put all those things in there, but we're worried about the legislators. And I was told point blank by one in Savannah when I had an office down there, as he said, if I feel like if it's too restrictive, I'm going to vote it down because I feel like you're going to be putting my constituents down. And I understand that. But also when I had an office there, I was competing against companies that worked in shorts and flip-flops. And that's not a joke, unfortunately. But all we're trying to do is just put something there to help protect the homeowners. What really struck me is I was the president of the GAA at the time of Brandon's death, and I went to the funeral and went to the gravesite just to represent GAA and met his wife, who was obviously now a widow. He had 4 kids, and to see 2 little kids crying on his grave, I said, this is ridiculous. I guess they could have, I don't know what could have happened. The wife could have sued the homeowner, because if there was no insurance or whatever else. But this is a rough industry. There's no way around it. It's an adrenaline-filled industry. It's an industry that's fairly easy to get into. So you get some guys with maybe sketchy backgrounds, but this is a job they can make really good money on it. There's guys making $500 a day, all day long. So it's very attractive to folks that may not be able to get a regular 9-to-5 job because of background checks and things like that. But we're not trying to clean everything up. We're not trying to turn everything around at one time. This is just that first line I think we've got to get to at least level the playing field, so to speak. Not level the playing field, but level it to where at least everybody's got insurance. At least they're doing things. We know at least that. At least the consumers are protected. And that's the phrase we wanted to say, and that's what Terry said years ago, is it's more about consumer protection than it is anything. Because right now, somebody hires a job, there's so many ways around certificates of insurance being faked. We hear accidents, regardless of fatalities, we hear accidents all the time. A tree company putting a tree in a house and then picking their stuff, picking their chainsaw up, skedaddling, and homeowners left, empty-handed. So I think that's kind of our goal. That's why we wanted to do this. Kirsten and I were unfortunately keeping count, like tally marks, recently in the last couple months. I know it was about a 2-month stretch. We were at 6, and then we went to 8 fatalities in Metro Atlanta. 1 in Chattanooga, everything else in Georgia. Within about a 2-month period, we lost about 7 or 8 guys. And just the week of September 1st, there were 2 crane accidents. One crane went through a house, another crane, that was made public on the TV. The other one didn't even make the news. Another crane was totaled, broke it completely in half, and he saved the house in the same week. So again, that's another piece of equipment we're using that's extremely dangerous. If you pick an air conditioner up off the ground and it's too heavy, you pick it up 6 inches, it's too heavy, you set it down, you regroup. You're taking a 150 or 125 foot tree apart, you take that first piece off, if it's too heavy, you've got it, it's yours, and you're at 100 feet. So again, there's no way we can guesstimate weights, but that's just kind of showing you how dangerous it is, in every aspect. And we just want to do something to make this industry safer. So,
Rusty, from your description of your career and that sort of thing at the beginning of your talk here, it sounds like you've worked in a lot of different areas in this field. What have you seen as far as the culture? Has there been an increase in awareness? Is there do you see, and this may be for everybody that's in the room related to this, do you see any increase in understanding of the value of training, that sort of thing? Are you noticing that the trade is actually trying to improve, or is it just there's too much turnover? I don't know. I'm just asking.
It's to a degree, definitely we see, like just driving down the road, you can look and if you see the trucks lettered and parked and got cones out and wheel chalks and all the guys are wearing PPE, there's a good chance they're probably doing things right. At least they care about their people enough to provide that. That's a start. We still see a lot of, no PPE, no safety gear whatsoever. So even though, and some of them are big name companies that aren't doing it right. I'd probably have to say take the recording off before I got too far along. But there are some companies that are doing it right. And I think as some of these folks leave, individuals leave those companies and start their own or work somewhere else, that's helping to spread the knowledge, and you're seeing it getting a little bit better. I guess I'm a perfectionist, and it's not enough for me. I think we're still too far along. It's still kind of the Wild West in certain areas. But there's still some companies out there that put profit over safety, and that tends to be a bad deal pretty quick. So.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? David?
Can you describe the safety equipment that you provide your employees, and just generally, I know some of it, but just kind of tell me and go over what you do.
All of our guys, when they first come in, for a new employee, they get a brand new hard hat, which is required. It'll have earmuffs on it, which are required. They either have safety glasses, and they also have, most of our guys have a shield on the front, so they're protecting their eyes. Most of them have gloves of some sort. We're requiring them to wear boots over the ankle support with good traction. anytime all the climbers get new gear and their gear is inspected on a regular basis to make sure it's safe and there's no nicks and dings or anything on it. If they're running a chainsaw, we require them, and it's not just us, it's ANSI requirements. They're required to wear chainsaw protection on their legs. If they're running the chainsaw on the ground, they either have to have chainsaw pants on or chainsaw chaps. A lot of our climbers will wear pants, those kind of pants in the air too, in the tree, just for extra protection. They're just used to it. So they're outfitted with everything that what we consider ANSI to be what they require. So.
Okay. When you say a climber, tell me, how do you describe a climber? Because in my area, I see a lot of boom trucks and lifts. You know, I don't see a lot of climbing. So does that overlap, or tell me?
There's a little bit of both. Like my lift is sitting out here now, and
Okay.
one of my top climbers is also my lift operator, so he can run
Okay.
both.
Okay.
But most of our companies all have pretty top-notch climbers. We get areas, backyards, back 40, where you can't get a lift or a bucket
Exactly.
truck too, so they've got to have a climber.
Yeah.
So basically, once they get off the ground, they're tied in. They're required to be tied in at 2 points of attachments at all time. So they have their rope usually way up above them, and then they'll have their, what we call their flip line or their lanyard on at a different point. So anytime they're using the chainsaw or the handsaw up top, they're tied in at 2 points. A fellow company had a expert climber several years ago. He was climbing before it was required to be tied in at 2 points with a handsaw. He was pruning a maple tree about 30 feet in the air with a handsaw, and the handsaw went through the rope, because when a rope is taut with the body, pulling down on it, it cuts like butter. And he fell, and he's paralyzed from the neck down ever since. So again, it can be dangerous stuff.
Thank you.
Seriously. Go ahead.
There's a series of rules that defines how a climber is supposed to work, and it's a 100-page manual written by the ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. And so that really, if you're wondering like what a climber is and what they're supposed to do, it's all been defined, and there's all of our companies have training protocols for how to get a person to a certain level as a climber. Most of our companies have like between 2 and 6 levels because the skill level is quantifiable. And we just need to get to the point where people are following the rules, and then the climbers will quit injuring themselves. I think it's very similar to the linemen. I mean,
That was going to be my question, basically, between the two of you. Like I said, coming through construction in the line, the power company, we had an apprenticeship. Basically, it was 4 years for, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 before you ever become a lineman. So my question within the Arborist Association was that, if I come to you and say I want to get in the, tree care industry, how many, within the teaching of the safety protocol, the rescuing the climber in the tree, but just the rigging itself, the proper cut methods, the whole gamut of it. Kind of what's your timeline of that? If I come to you green as a horn, to be able to turn me loose within the tree care industry, what's the timeline you think would play a part in that?
It's hard to say. There's nothing in writing. It depends on, I've seen climbers come in, and my son is a firefighter for West Jackson Fire Department now, but he used to climb for me. And not because he's my son, other climbers, even trainers that are here today, said he was one of the fastest advancing persons he had ever seen. I remember standing on my back deck at Downey, and he was first time on spikes, jittery as could be, on my birthday on September 17th. And by the end of October, we were in Hilton Head doing storm damage, and he was taking out tops of pine trees with cranes. So some will progress further than others. I think a lot of it's the fear of height they've got to get over. As a rule of thumb, we want them to come in and learn the very, very basics. We just don't say, here's a rope, here's spikes, go take off. We start them low and slow and progressively get them a little further. They've got to have good working knowledge of all the safety protocols, good working knowledge of the proper cuts, working with chainsaws. So I would think from totally green to even remote good climber, probably 6 months is a good rule of thumb, and then they progress from there.
Do you see most, associations in the Arbor Association, the companies, do they all kind of have the same training method within the industry, or do you just kind of see different from A to Z?
Right now, it's literally the luck of the draw. If you're smart enough and skilled enough to get on with the right company, to learn the right way from the ground up, you're golden. But there's nothing out there saying this is the right company, this is the wrong company. And it's so easy. We had guys, the company I used to work for, Downey, our owner owned a saw shop in Cumming. And we would have people come in there, 50, 60, 70-year-old men, buy $1,500, what used to be full gear, saddles, ropes, spikes, everything else, because they didn't want to pay somebody to do their trees, and they would buy it to go home and do their own trees. There's no restrictions on buying that gear. There's nothing. Like I say, and I say it jokingly, but literally, a chainsaw, a case of beer, and gear, and as Tirsa said, getting in trouble on the ground, sometimes you can kind of hit timeout, step back, and figure out how to fix it. You get in trouble at 100 feet in the air, it's too late. But it's fairly easy. I hope you would agree. It's fairly easy to teach somebody to get to 100 feet in the air. You know, I could put spikes on one of you guys and let you have a few minutes, and you could get up there. So there's a lot of training, and we get a lot of folks, especially in the deer hunting world. Oh, I deer hunt. I go 40 feet with a deer stand. I can do this. We get folks doing tree work out of deer stands. It's that crazy. But no, I think every company's going to be different. There is no mandate that they've got to work this long. We don't have the official apprenticeship. Certain companies might, but nothing across the board.
Victor?
Yeah, Jordan.
I have a question. Since y'all been tracking the number of people who are dying, how many are illegal immigrants and how many can pass a drug test?
In all honesty, the thing is, what we track is just what we hear.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked to some of the elite insurance companies, and we can't get the information. I know the first day we met with Victor, you had some numbers that were obviously very enlightening, but y'all were able to get numbers that we have not been able to pull from anywhere. Insurance companies don't want to release it. We have not tracked it necessarily from an illegal immigrant standpoint, but I know there have been a lot of Hispanics that have been on the fatality deal. And I am sad to say that there are some company owners out there that look at the Hispanics as disposable and could care less. I'd like to get my hands around them, but there are some out there that I know personally, that I know the owners, and that's kind of how they look at things. So when you're working for that company, you want to find the company that cares and is willing to go to take the time to train. I guess the flip side of that is, as some of us owners, a lot of these guys, we put a lot of value and time into them and gear, train them, and a year later they think they're ready to go out and be contract climbers and go out on their own. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of our industry, I guess. So.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Rusty. All right, and now I'd like to welcome Cesar Sesmas. Yep. Cesar's with Arbor Forest Tree Services. And Cesar, go right ahead, sir.
So my name is Cesar. I am a certified arborist with Arbor Forest Tree Services. I have been doing tree work in the field for over 15 years. I have been fortunate enough to have great mentors to guide me in the right direction, one of them being Tierson and Rusty. I am here to express my support for their supports for some kind of regulation to enhance the safety of crew members and homeowners in the industry. I endorse the efforts of Tierson and Rusty to advance the industry, to advance our industry for the benefit of the future generations. I believe we can balance everyone. We can balance opportunities for everyone by implementing some basic requirements. So that's pretty much what I got.
Okay, do we have questions for Cesar? David?
On the last statement, you said kind of within the industry, like you said, regulate it for safety, which is great, but then you said basic requirements. Could you just kind of educate me on what would be your thoughts on basic requirements?
Yeah, basic requirements for the workers, obviously, workman's comp, and then for the homeowner's liability. Like Rusty was saying, it's really easy to get into the industry. You go to the pawn shop and you can buy a chainsaw, a trailer, and a pickup, and you're in business. I do think it's important to have some basic requirements to protect the workers and the homeowners, because I have seen accidents where tree companies literally drop a tree on a house and then get up and leave, and then I've also seen where workers get hurt, and the business owners have no workman's comp, so the workers are like kind of let out to dry, and then the community has to come back and support them. So I think just some basic stuff to start a tree business would be beneficial for the workers and for the homeowners. So that's what I meant by the last part.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to welcome Eric Gansor. Gansor, okay. I apologize.
No problem. My name gets butchered quite a bit. Well, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be able to stand in front of you and with Rusty and Tierson and Cesar. I come from a little bit different bent. I am the city arborist for Columbus, Georgia, the acting city arborist. So I'm seeing things from the municipal side, but my job requirements also have me touching the commercial side. And listening to Tierson and Rusty and Cesar, there's a lot of rabbit holes we could get down right now. And probably one of the biggest that I've picked up in our conversation here is the safety issue. Now, as far as safety in our industry, the documents that we have are voluntary documents. They are the ANSI, American National Standards Institute, Z133. That is our safety standard. And our work quality standard is ANSI A300. There's several parts to that. There is at this point, there is nothing with OSHA that covers our industry except the line clearance industry, and that's why we have the Z133 document. OSHA regulates the electrical industry, the power industry, under CFR Part 129, and that covers that side of things. But the rest of it, for commercial arborists, is a voluntary situation. And that's what needs to change. Now, the Tree Care Industry Association, which is a nationwide association that caters mainly to business, has lobbyists in Washington working with OSHA, and there is some movement there. But we don't have anything in hand right now. So I just wanted to put that out there, get that on the table, because I think it's important. As far as for Columbus, Columbus is the only city in the state of Georgia that requires a specific license for tree service operators. It is a test that is administered out of my office. It follows the basically some of the testing procedures of the International Society of Arboriculture Certified Arborist Test. I have built a test around those study documents. I have candidates come in, they sit for the test, they have to perform field competency testing as well. They must pass that test before they can get a business license, and those two are married. So if you have a business, if you're outside the county, you're from Troup County, I have a young lady in Troup County that has our business license. She came down, we were in court, and but she came down, passed the test. She's good. The testing procedure, I don't know how that's going to go, but I agree with Rusty. I agree with Tierson. The state licensing, there has to be something, and it has to be. They have to be able to prove insurances. I don't, the legislation that allows me to have this, administer this test does not enable me to say, show me your insurance. So they can get licensed, and I can guarantee you right now, 3/4 of the companies that are in Columbus, Georgia, do not have workman's compensation insurance. And what a lot of them will do, with Georgia's workman's comp laws, when you have more than, as I understand them, you have more than 3 employees, you have to have workman's comp. Up to 3, you don't have to have it. They will have, regular citizens, natural citizens. They'll have 2 or 3, and then they'll have 5 or 6 undocumented workers. Talking about accidents and incidents, in the last year and a half, we've had, I think, 5 fatalities in the Columbus area. The last one was here back in May. It was a 17-year-old kid. He was actually killed across the river in Alabama, but he was from the area. 3 weeks from graduation from high school. I don't know any of the particulars about the incident. I have a next door neighbor that has a tree service business, and I'm going to say about 6 years ago, he had a gentleman that was killed. They were taking down a tree, a pine, dead pine, just a trunk in a wooded area. The gentleman cut the tree. It started to tip. He turned around, started walking away. It wobbled back and came down. A branch stub sticking out about that far from the trunk hit him in the temple. They dumped him off at the front door of the emergency room, and he died 2 days later. He was from Guatemala. Again, undocumented. We had a gentleman just a year ago, this week, was trying to get his life straightened up. He drug issues, things. Was doing some work for one of his church members. Completely lost track of what he was doing. He had taken most of the limbs off the tree, was cutting the top out, forgot to untie his rope and pull his rope out. He came out with the top. His son was helping him. When the EMTs got there, his son was performing CPR on him, and there was brain matter on the ground beside his head. We're a great fraternity. I have friends literally all over the world. I have people all over the world I can pick up my phone and call and network with. When you're doing it right, that's the way it is. But as Rusty said, to get your nails done or your hair cut, those people need to be licensed. This is just it's a quick buck. It's beer money for the weekend. It throws a bad light on those of us that are doing it right. So, as far as that, everything else, my people, my municipal workers, we try to train as much as we can. But again, municipal workers aren't under the workman's comp issues we have comp on them, but the training issues and things like that, we aren't pushed on, and I'd like to see some of that happen too. Any questions, gentlemen?
Jordan?
I will say one thing about the workers' comp that you mentioned. I know one problem in Georgia with workers' comp is ghost policies. For $2,000, you can go get a workers' comp policy, but if anybody gets injured, it actually doesn't cover anything. And being in the landscaping and tree care industry, I know several companies who have workers' comp, but it is a ghost policy. They pay $2,000, $2,500 a year. They can give the homeowner the workers' comp certificate, but when they go to the hospital, the insurance company's like, we're not paying anything. It's not real. We just charge you $2,500 for a certificate.
I had a visit from the state workman's comp investigator about one of the companies in Georgia here. It's been, again, 7-8 years ago. And this is one of the old established companies. And he was not carrying workman's comp, and it cost him about $350,000. So there's one that was got. Sir?
Yes. Being here today, a lot of the introduction of the climbers, they're from all over the southeast and here competing for the weekend. So going back, like I said, with the association we're speaking of here in the state of Georgia, during storm situations, do y'all see an issue with other individuals coming from out of state to try to gain work, profit during storm situations of cutting and clearing?
There's always storm chasers out there. Some are good, some are bad. They get paid by FEMA.
That's the one thing Kirsten and I spoke about is in our mock-up, we really have to address that. And I know when the hurricane hit, we were on the hit. The only hill hit, you had to have a license. They wanted to know who you were, everything about you.
And that was the reason I asked, because no one with those situations, that was a concern.
Yeah, the city of Columbus has a contract with a company specifically for storm work. To my knowledge, in the 21 years I've been there, we've never used them. We should have used them in 2019 when we had the tornado that went through from Beauregard, Alabama, all the way through Harris County. We used our own people and our own equipment, and we tore up a bunch of stuff. So really cost the city more than what the contractor would have.
Eric, let me ask you a question real quick regarding Columbus and the testing program that you have. Is that to simply get a business license as a tree care professional in the city limits of Columbus?
It is. Of course, Columbus is a consolidated government, so it's
Right.
Columbus,
Okay.
Muskogee County. I wasn't, an employee when that was put in. I believe it was put in into the ordinance around 1978, 79, something like that. About the time we became a Tree City USA. And it was, the aim was to have proof of some minimum competence in being able to do the work. And like I say, because it is a legislated license requirement, then the business license also is married to that. So.
What is the public knowledge of that program? Do residents of the county realize it exists?
We have an advocacy group, Trees Columbus, that does a really good job in disseminating information. In fact, I work with her, Dorothy McDaniels, on a regular basis. In fact, we have a situation going on right now that's going to go to the courts that she can get things into the higher levels of government that I can't. I can't jump over the chain of command. And so, like I say, we work together. They have a strong following, and we most people know it. And of course, there's always going to be people out there that are, hey, I'll cut that down for $500 and pile the stuff out at the curb and let the city pick it up. It is what it is. But
Keep Columbus Beautiful, Dorothy was talking about, it's probably the strongest Keep Georgia Beautiful group anywhere in the state. They're extremely well respected.
it's Trees Columbus, not Keep Columbus. But,
What's that again? Trees Columbus.
and you may want to tap Dorothy for some information from that side of things here, because I'm sure she could shed some light. Any other questions?
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Marvin?
Yeah, I had two questions. One and I think this is for all you all, just to clarify, of all of the fatalities and property damages, I understand that it's not anywhere near perfect data, but I just wanted to confirm that most, if not all of those, were not certified arborists or something like that. And that actually leads to my second question. Is there anything under certified arborists? To Representative Huddleston's point about like apprentices in training, what is like the lead up to becoming a certified arborist?
Okay. Well, I served on the ISA certification test committee. I came off last year. I served 12 years on that. So I've had a hand in writing the certification test. Qualifications for to sit for the certified arborist test are for somebody who has no educational background in it, a minimum of 3 years documented through business records of training in the industry. And you sit for the test, and you study for the test, sit for the test, and at that point, if you pass, you're a certified arborist. From that point, you have to maintain certain number of continuing education units over a 3-year period to recertify each year. There are other levels of certification. There's a certified tree worker. There's a certified municipal specialist, which I hold that credential. Certified utility specialist, and then board certified master arborist. Kirsten is master arborist. I've been a certified arborist for 34 years. Out of 40-some thousand certified arborists in the world, my certification number is 74. And
To be clear, being a certified arborist is really not too closely related to this safety issue that we're trying to confront. It's mostly about having knowledge of tree biology, which puts you in a position to provide expert advice to people. For example, advice about how to prune their tree or when to prune their tree, or if it's a good idea to remove your tree at this time, or whether you can cure the tree's disease as opposed to removing the tree. So there's 12 domains to becoming a certified arborist, and only one of them has to do with safety, and it's pretty easy to pass. So what we do at Boutte Tree is we use all of our certified arborists to do sales work, because their skill set's great for sales. And then we invest very heavily in safety training for all the workers, which if you want, you could call those people practicing arborists. So the language is super important to understand. What GFAST members think is that making all the workers become certified arborists is a bad idea because it's too hard for them to pass. It gives them knowledge that doesn't apply to their work. So that's what most of the members think, is that it's just about training the people that are doing the work to do their job properly. And to be honest, a lot of certified arborists don't really know how to climb a tree or do it safely.
So what I'm hearing in reference to Marvin's question is there's not really for lack of better words, climber 1, climber 2, master climber. I mean, it's gradient classification. Gotcha. Okay, it's not an industry thing. It could potentially be business, company related, that sort of thing, but not industry wide. That's what you were asking, right? Okay.
Thank you.
So like at Boutte Tree, we have 6 levels. And once you get to level 3, then you ask, when do you turn them loose? Level 3 is where they could be all by themselves on a job.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. I'm sorry.
And this can be to all you guys. Takeaways from what you said, the top 3 things that we could do to make this industry safer. And I think I heard insurance is kind of at the top of the list. What would the other 2 be? If you
Training, there has to be, companies have to be responsible. They're already responsible under federal law to train their employees to confront the risk. OSHA says that an employer has to train the employee to be ready to confront the risks of the job. And so we in Georgia need to make sure that we make a license, a requirement of a license needs to be that the employer meets that obligation. And that if there's a problem, we can hold their feet to the fire and say, well, what did you do to prevent this? Did you ever train your guys?
Documented, yeah.
Okay.
That, to me, that's a big one.
Okay.
As far as a requirement, I mean, 2, 3 years in the industry, we don't want to make it where, like, in order to jump into the business, you got to be a certified arborist and you got to have 8 years of experience. I don't think that's a good requirement, because that would have prevented me from getting in, for one.
A number of y'all mentioned, like I said, you was talking about the barber, the hair salon, that type thing of having a state license. So kind of talk within that takeaway there, you think within the association probably need to look at having some type of license.
That's what we think, yeah. Some kind of license, yeah.
There's a couple ways that I look at this. Instead of putting so many band-aids in the front end that it doesn't pass the state. And I may be completely wrong in thinking this. If this passes, and all these companies have to have at least the minimum coverage of insurance. I know some really good insurance agents out there, and I'm sure there's some out there that are perfectly fine with just taking your money. But I'm just gonna do like role play, is if Caesar, if we both get this license, and he does everything right by the book, he's gonna pay a cheaper insurance because he's got very few claims.
if I'm still doing things reckless, I get the license, but I'm still doing things reckless, my insurance rates are gonna go up. Because the way insurance companies look at it, not necessarily the severity of the accidents, but the frequency. Because they're smart enough to know if you've got a bunch of little ones, the big one's coming. So what I'm hoping is that we fix the safety from the back door in, is by those insurance folks, if they're proactive and not just taking your money or saying, hey, we're gonna drive you.
Right.
There's some out there, I know a couple, that are, you know, that we talked to with this deal, is we're seeing your accidents go up. We think you need to be doing some tailgate safety training. We need to bring in some experts. Are your guys wearing PPE? And they're going to help get the safety better because the owner, whether he truly cares about safety or not, he cares about the money.
Right.
So either your rates are going up or you need to get this training. And that's where we've kind of had some talks, whether it be JFOSTI, whether JFOSTI keeps going and we don't just dissolve, or GAA become more of a training institution, and we're supplying it in English and Spanish. We can send guys through it, not just a one-day training, but get some certifications and reward the owners for getting that training and getting their guys to the next level in all aspects, from the brand new guy to the senior guy, have different certifications and different certificates he can get. And in return, he's going to keep his insurance down. I think that's to me, that's what I'm hoping to see, because I know the companies out there that have lost insurance. And the one thing I did not know about insurance, I didn't know how it worked until I've talked to these folks, is, again, throwing things out there. If Tierson has horrible safety practices and his insurance company drops him and he goes to you to get insurance, he doesn't have to tell you why he was dropped. You already know, because you can see the back door, you can see behind the screen, and it shows everything, all these accidents. So if you want to be in the tree care business, it behooves you to do it right, because either they're going to run, right now they're just running without insurance, most of them, because it's so expensive. But those that want to do it right, you know, all they got to do is either pay less, or if they do get dropped, they're not going to be able to find it anywhere else. But what you stated about the ghost policies, that is a huge concern. And when we're doing fundraisers for our JFOSTI group, I've had a few people say they want that addressed because they see it as a huge concern, and I agree with them. So,
Eric, one question. I think I heard you say earlier that in your testing and licensing program through the Columbus Consolidated Government, you do not have, or are not allowed to have, an insurance requirement in that. Is that what I understood?
That's what was handed to me. So
Okay.
I don't know if, I'm going to have to talk with the city attorney to find that out. Like I said,
Gotcha. Okay.
I can't jump over the chain of command. One thing I did forget to mention is, my background. I've been in what we call the green industry, landscaping, nursery work, tree work, for 56 years. I've been a working arborist for 49 years, so I guess I'm the old man at it here. So. But thank you for taking your time on a Saturday to come out and talk with us about it, and I look forward to following through with this with you folks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all, gentlemen, for spending some of your valuable time today with us. We appreciate it.
Can we ask you guys any questions?
Sure, yes.
What do you guys think is the best way to regulate this industry, taking into account your values as legislators and your experience? I'm so curious to know. I've been waiting for a long time to hear what the committee members' thoughts are based on your experience in trying to regulate in the past.
I'll just kind of give and this is not just a short answer to that, and it would be check back with me in about 4 more meetings. Because as you and Rusty and I have discussed, also, the first thing that we have to do is we have to increase or create the awareness in our body to the issues and the problems at hand, and the severity of those issues. And having meetings like this, having testimony, hearing about the experiences and the practices and the lack thereof will help us to do that. You know, the purpose of this committee and what we've all kind of discussed going into this is we'll try to figure out how the legislative body can assist the industry in doing what needs to be done. I've always said you can't regulate morality, just the same thing. We can't necessarily legislate good intentions and good practices. We can provide guidelines and rules, and that's what we're looking at right now to see from a legislature what guidelines and rules could potentially be put in place that are not going to hinder the people who want to be in the industry, the people who want to experience the American dream of entrepreneurship, but at the same time allow them to go home to their families at night and not have to deal with these issues on a regular basis. So, I'll let anybody else speak to that.
I think that's very true. Basically, at the end of the day, I've been, talking with a lot of folks prior to this, and it's like I said, you don't want to deter anybody from coming into the industry, especially the next generation, the younger, because, we got to have them. But at the end of the day, even like I said, all the years when we've been in power company, you want to make sure that the employees go home to be with their families. So I think, like I said, gathering information allow us to determine, but I want to go ahead and jump ahead and just thank all of y'all for the information that y'all have shared, because it's enlightened me on a number of areas, like I said, within the industry. So thank y'all.
One of the things I'd say is the insurance requirements. Being in the industry myself, I remember few years ago, we were on a job site and another tree company across the street using illegal immigrants dropped the tree on a house, and they were gone within 15 minutes of dropping the tree on the house. Homeowner came across the street and was like, "Can you help us?" And I'm like, "Well, you're going to have to pay us." And they're like, "Well, we paid them up front. What do? We don't have any money now. We have a tree on our house," and their insurance policy was forged. So it's, making sure the insurance requirements, and then the illegal immigrants who, they have no incentive whatsoever to follow the rules because they call the cops, they're afraid they're going to go to jail or things like that. So those two things are very important.
I share Representative Ridley's comments on the insurance. That was my first question. I will say on the flip side, I do, in Norcross, we do have a lot of folks who are of various documentation, and I think this is not the conversation for that, but I think at the end of the day, it's figuring out, is it just the licensing? If we're doing licensing, is it the safety training? And if so, what exactly is that going to look like so that it's actually effective and not onerous on anybody, right? Or, again, I have some doubts about the insurance, but I'm happy to be convinced about that on the workers' comp side and the liability side. So I think it's not, we're always talking about not having unintended consequences. So I think for us, or certainly for me, it's figuring out what already exists and how well does that work and how well are there components that we can adopt, add on to. So I think basically what Chairman Anderson thinks, I want to learn more about it because I understand that it's more complicated. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal, I think, of wanting people to be safe and wanting this industry to continue to thrive, but it's too early to tell what that actually looks like to accomplish that, I think.
I kind of agree with what's been said by my colleagues. I ran on basically less regulation because I believe in that. However, certainly this is a very, very dangerous industry, and there needs to be something that we can look at to perhaps address that. And that's, I'm with the chairman. We need a little bit more time to look at it and see what we can do, if there's something we can do to help benefit the industry and actually protect homeowners also, or business owners that can be impacted by this also. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, just to kind of close that question out a little bit here, before I agreed to carry this resolution asking for the study committee, I reached out to some of my friends in our area. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Don McAllister. McAllister Tree Service started out of Cornelia, Georgia. Don's a good friend of mine, grew up with Kim, my wife, and I in the same community there. We've known the family all their lives. Don is probably one of the most libertarian people I've ever met, which says, you know, stay out of my business and keep everything out of my business. Let me do my job. Don told me himself, he said, look, he said, I don't like regulation. I don't like government interference. He said, but if there is an industry that could benefit from it, it's our industry. He said, and I would support the efforts that y'all are doing. And that's, you know, hearing that from a trusted source myself, not that I don't trust you guys, but I had to come home. And so, you know, that's been kind of a little bit of a guiding indication for me as far as proceeding with this. So. All right.
Thank you all.
All right. We will have our next meeting on October 2nd in Peachtree Corners. The meeting will be hosted by Representative Scott Hilton. We're working on the final details of that. Myself or Chelsea or Bailey will get that information out probably the first to the middle of this coming week. It'll be at the Peachtree Corners Municipal Building, I believe, is where it's going to be. So I'm getting all that information finalized the first part of the week. So I'll be sending a notice out on that or get it sent out that way. Any other comments before we adjourn and go watch? I believe you had mentioned to me the ascent competition, open ascent, I think is what you call it.
There's 5 events here. We're really thin on judges, so we're running 3 events this morning or most of the day. But here shortly, they should be starting what they call the open ascent and then the bull speed climb. They're both super fast events to go through.
Okay, well, we'll many of us I know are planning to stick around and watch that and maybe spend a little time with you guys this afternoon and evening. And appreciate again your spending some time with us. Thank you. Any other comments on the committee? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you.